Welcome to the Middle of Culture. I'm one of your hosts, Eden.
And I'm Cassie.
Hi, Cassie. You're not my usual co-host. Who are you?
Nope. I am your wife.
My wife. You set me up for that. That's you. That's your fault. That Borat was your fault, not my fault. I, as a partner to a wife, am contractually obligated when someone refers to my wife to go, my wife. It's the law, according to the rules.
Thanks, Borat.
Thank you, Sacha Baron Cohen, for ruining all of us forever. Anyway, Peter is not going to be joining us on this episode. He's been busy with some family stuff and some life stuff, but we wanted to get a podcast in the feed this week. So my wife, Cassie, was very kind and offered to chat with me, and we're going to have a chat about stuff, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to be the best.
I don't know about that.
Rude?
I'm just talking about my own personal contribution, not yours. Your half will, of course, be the best.
Yeah, there you go.
So we always start the podcast, Cassie, chatting about what we've been, checking out in terms of pop culture stuff in the last little bit. So what have you been watching or reading or listening to? What's caught your interest lately?
Are we talking about current media or
here's the thing.
Or not?
We're not promoting any specific thing.
Okay.
So we are not talking for 45 minutes about why Barbie was or wasn't a good movie.
Gotcha.
But you can say, hey, I watched this show, or hey, I watched this movie. Because we're not doing promotion and critique. We're just mentioning these are things that we've been participating in that are interesting to talk about.
Okay. Well, let's see. I have been watching Chicago Fire.
Chicago Fire!
Which, there should be more firefighter shows in general. There should be way more firefighter shows than cop shows.
We've been talking about this.
Yep.
Tell me why.
It's better because firefighters work together and save people's lives. That is the whole objective of each episode. and
listeners know, I'm an ACAB girly. I do not believe in the institution of the police, and I believe they should be abolished. Even if Peter might not necessarily share those radical views with me. But I think you're a little bit more on that end, and I think that the fire department is an interesting counterpoint to the cop show.
Yes.
Which is often about, catching the bad guy, which is not what cops actually do.
Right. And also is usually, a rogue cop is the only one who can get justice for somebody, right? Whereas in the firefighter shows, you can't go on your own, then you die.
Going rogue means you are toasted.
And also it means that you're putting the rest of your team at risk also. And so you really have to be more community minded and more team oriented, and I'm into that.
And it's almost deep down you're a communist and you think that we should work together.
Almost I think community matters.
Almost.
Yep.
So you've been enjoying Chicago Fire?
Yep, and then also Taskmaster, which is a British show.
Taskmaster, that's one we could definitely talk about because that is not covered by SAG-AFTRA. What's Taskmaster?
It is a British show hosted by comedians that has guest comedians on it, and they just do absurd tasks, and then they get ranked.
What are some examples of some absurd tasks?
Okay, so in one of the episodes I just watched, which is from season 4, I think, or series 4, because they call season series, they had to, it's always 5 comedians who are guests on the show, and they had to take a skateboard and load it up with as many coconuts as they could, and whoever had the most coconuts still on their skateboard at the end of the little ramp would win. And they could use materials from this little caravan that was next to the ramp, but if they used the same materials as another contestant, then they would both get no points.
Oh, word. That's an interesting wrinkle. Mm-hmm. So, there were probably some, really obvious things, like tape or glue.
Yeah, well, so, for example...
well, shit, Jenny's definitely going to use tape because she's basic. So I can't use tape because Jenny's going to use tape.
So they had in the caravan on the table, there was this box that said on it, coconut harness. And it was just a box that you opened it up and it had little, spots, like an egg carton kind of, like where you could fit, I think, 18 coconuts.
Oh, boy.
And every person picked it up and went, well, everyone's going to use this. And so then nobody used it.
And nobody just decided to take the gamble of...
Right.
Everyone is saying everyone's using this, so no one's going to use it, so I'm going to use it.
But what happened is 2 people used a curtain, and so they were both disqualified.
Oh, that's rough. Mm-hmm. It's real rough.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, I have watched that show over your shoulder. When we were visiting your family a month or 2 ago, we watched like the entire first series in like one sitting, because there's like 5 episodes or whatever, and it's a pretty entertaining show.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. What have you been reading, listening to?
Yeah. Let's see. I always keep things I've talked a couple times on the podcast in my little notebook. I have to consult my tome so that I know what I've been watching and reading because my brain doesn't work right.
Have you described this notebook on the podcast?
You mean my Golden Girls planner that I cover with stickers? We have. One time when Peter was talking about his like organizational stuff, and I was like, my organizational stuff is a Golden Girls planner that they sold in Target for like 3 weeks in New Year's 2021, and I had to buy 3 copies of it online from eBay so that I could still use it because I like it. So that's a deep cut for listeners of things that I do. Let's see. A couple of things worth mentioning. I played a couple of RPGs in the last couple of weeks, which is applicable to what me and Peter were going to talk about and we'll likely talk about in the next episode where we'll be doing some goofy RPG ranking. And I played all of Pillars of Eternity. I actually beat it this morning before I went to work.
Ooh.
And Pillars of Eternity is an interesting game because both complimentarily and derogatorily, it feels like you're playing a game from 1998, even though it's a game from 2017.
Okay.
Because, like, the systems that it uses are the exact same systems and, like, layout and UI design of Baldur's Gate, which is a 1998 game.
Sure.
And, like, it offers a lot of nostalgia because it feels like you're playing a game that you played when you were 15.
If you played those kinds of games.
If you played 15. That kind of game when you were 15. Again, this will be relevant to our conversation in a few minutes.
Are you getting too deep into your next episode?
Or later in this episode, for that matter.
Yeah.
But also it just feels really dated because of that.
Sure.
Because those mechanics aren't great, and that UI isn't stellar. And it was really interesting because it's made by Obsidian, and they've made a whole bunch of games. They're a studio that I generally really like. And they made a game that came out late last year, early this year, called Pentiment, that I think is a really stellar video game. And it's like a weird adventure game set in the late medieval period, where everything is done in like the style of illuminated manuscripts. And I think it's really dope. But I read an interview when it came out with Josh Sawyer, who is like one of the like creative leads at Obsidian, talking about his experience in other games. And he talked about the Pillars games, because there's a sequel that I just started this evening. And he called them his most compromised works. Because, not because it wasn't the story that he wanted to tell, but just because they were both Kickstarter games. And Obsidian is now owned by Microsoft, so they've got more money than God at this point, and they can basically do whatever they want, which is how you make a game about an adventure game murder mystery set in the 1500s that looks like an illuminated manuscript. It's when Microsoft buys you, and you're like, let's fucking throw the Microsoft money around. But before you get bought by Microsoft, then you need to go to Kickstarter. And then you kickstart a game, and you get 77,000 people to give into your Kickstarter who all just want Baldur's Gate. So then, regardless of what choices you would have made during production to like streamline or modernize or change those mechanics and those systems, that's not what those 77,000 people who gave you Kickstarter money want. So you are constrained, kind of. I think that's what it came down to, is he felt like he was mechanically constrained.
Sure.
In those 2 games. Whereas they don't have to do that anymore. Like, the game that they announced that is their next big game is set in the same world as Pillars of Eternity, but, like, is not this kind of game. It's like, it's an Elder Scrolls game. It's like a first-person game where I'm going to be going around and, like, shooting spells at people and, like, firing arrows in people's faces and cool shit like that. Like, it's going to be cooler than an isometric CRPG. But I did really like the story of Pillars of Eternity. So...
What did you like about it?
I just thought it was a really interesting, like, fantasy world that they built. Because it was, like, it's a unique fantasy world, as far as I know, that they built for this game. It's not like a D&D game where they're just like, oh, Baal is here because he's one of the gods from Dungeons and Dragons, and we've got elves we've got Drizzt Do'Urden here from the books. So it's just a different creature in that way. And I thought that the cosmology in the world they built was interesting. And again, while I don't think it was a perfect game, I thought it was fun enough, and I started the second one earlier today, and I'm going to probably play the second one. And then the big thing is I beat Starfield.
Oh. No big deal.
Look, sometimes you just play a game, and then you think to yourself, because it's a Bethesda game, I can just beat the main quest and then just keep futzing around afterwards. Au contraire, mon frere, you beat this game, and then it's like, you beat it. Do you want to do New Game Plus? You want to start again? You want to do it again? You want to start it all over again? Because it's designed to be played multiple times, which is not a thing that Bethesda's ever done in their games before. Which is interesting, but I really liked that game.
So are you going to play it again?
Yeah, I'm just taking a break and playing some other stuff for a while, but I got that New Game Plus started, and I'll probably go back and be the Starborn for a bit.
Nice.
I really liked it, and I think Peter and I will be talking about it in a couple weeks, so I'll save my thoughts till then, but I thought it was dope. The other thing I wanted to mention is I recently read the novel over the course of like a day. I read the novel The End We Start From, which is by Megan Hunter.
Oh, yeah. You were telling me about this before.
Yeah, and it's a novel that is basically like poetry in prose about a climate crisis refugee, which seems heavier. And it's a heavy book, but like it's heavy in its like emotional weight from a poetic standpoint rather than from like it shows you lots of like really heavy imagery, because there's not a whole lot of imagery in that way in the book. It's a lot of poetic license. It's got really, really dreamy prose the way that it's written, and it's very quiet and very lonely and very it's not very specific. It's not very concrete. And I think that works to the strength of the book. You can tell that this woman was a poet and then decided to write a novel after she had a kid. Because that's what this book... You can tell that this is a book that a poet wrote after she became a mom. And like... I don't say that to be disparaging. I thought it was really beautiful. I read it, like I say, in like less than 24 hours. I read like 65% of it just laying in bed one night and then finished it the next afternoon as soon as I got home from work. I thought it was really stellar, but it does bear the hallmarks of a first novel, and a holy shit, my life just changed, I'm a mom now novel. Because that's what the premise of the book is. It is a woman who has a baby on the day that London floods because of climate crisis. And so she and her partner and their brand new baby become refugees the day that baby is born.
Yikes.
Because the city they live in floods and they can't go home because there's no home to go to.
Sure.
And then it basically charts the next year of this woman's life being a climate refugee. It's really good though. I really recommend it. I thought it was really dope. I read it because I saw the trailer for the movie, which is due out. It's been to a couple of film festivals. I think it's due out this holiday season. The reviews are saying it's a perfectly 3 out of 5 movie, which doesn't surprise me. I would give the book higher marks than that. I thought the book was better than that, but I don't know how you turn this dreamy, poetic book into a movie that's good. I think it's just going to be okay.
Sure.
But we'll see when it comes out.
Yeah, there are some stories that lend themselves to different storytelling mediums, and others that like are really at home in their original format.
I agree.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that the story couldn't be told well in film, but the way that the story was told in prose cannot be transferred to film without it being like a very esoteric tone piece, which is not the sort of movie that Benedict Cumberbatch produces and has a cameo, like a small role in. Like, it's not the movie that's supposed to be Jodie Comer's star turn, which is what this movie is supposed to be.
Sure.
So, we'll see, though. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's what we've been up to.
Yeah.
But tonight, we wanted to chat a little bit about video games, actually. So it is apropos of what we were discussing earlier. And we just kind of wanted to chat a little bit about, like, what are our experiences playing video games? What do we like in video games? What do we not like in video games? And, like, I don't know, just chat about stuff like that. So, Cassie, what is your experience with video games? Like, when growing up, what was... Because, like, we are of that generation that potentially all grew up with Nintendos and Sega Genesises and things like that in our house. But I don't think either of us grew up with that shit.
No. So my experience growing up was we didn't get a game system until I was kind of older. And so most of my video game experience was at friends' houses, which meant they were all really good at those games because they played them all the time. And I had never played them before, and so I was terrible. And so they would often, like when it was collaborative or co-op games, like nobody ever wanted to be on my team because I didn't like know how the controllers worked, and it was not fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like not console games, like computer games?
Oh yeah, we had computer games. Like I remember my mom would only buy us like educational games when they were like on CD-ROM.
Sure.
So we had like Treasure Mountain, which was a math game. Okay. And you had to like do math equations when the like bad guys were attacking you to like defeat them. And
why not?
Yep. And there was another, maybe it was Treasure Mountain. There was one of the games where you had to go to the like market to get tools and stuff for your mission, and there was a little shopkeeper lady who would always say, "Thank you, dearie," and my brothers and I like still will say that to each other. That's from that whatever game.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we also had computer games that like started to come on computers. So like the Mac computers. What were the ones that had the colored case?
Oh, the iMacs?
The iMacs, yes.
Hell yeah. What an iconic. Like, yeah. I am not really a big like late 90s, early 2000s nostalgia person. Translucent plastic electronics, however, get me.
Yeah.
I am here for a translucent plastic electronic.
Yeah, so I had a Tangerine iMac in my room.
Oh, damn, Tangerine,
yes.
Of course.
Yeah, well, that was before the orange.
Was it before the orange? The orange infection in your life?
Yes, and
it was just kismet.
Yes, and there was a game on there called Nanosaur, I think, that where you played as a dinosaur and you were like exploring the like prehistoric times and like collecting dinosaur eggs.
Was that
like,
the one that we found on that abandonware site?
Yes, it was. And it was so fun, but it was also kind of glitchy. Sometimes you would get like stuck in a wall and you would have to just like hard reboot and start over. And there were like different save points. And so if you got stuck in a wall before you had done a save point, you had to go all the way back to the last save point. And I really liked that game. I got really into that game. And then also Rocket's New School by Purple Moon.
Oh, yeah.
Purple Moon. And so that one is like a storytelling game. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure where you are Rocket and you are new in school, as the title suggests. And
very evocative title.
Yes, and your like menu, I guess, is her locker. So like the game starts out and it opens the locker and you can like see all the different like ways that you can start your day. And so you can like make friends with different people, and you can like join different activities, and then of course like the choices that you make then like influence the story that's told with the game.
It's almost like a visual novel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because like you've played some of those like phone game visual novels and stuff.
Yeah.
Was that sort of how it worked? Like it wasn't like there wasn't like gameplay outside of conversation and choices.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and I really liked that game too.
I remember that was one we also found on an abandonware site.
It didn't work.
But like no one could get the SFV just to run right. And like everyone was like, I'm so glad that someone has found this, but this ISO will not work on any device.
It was very tragic.
It really was. Mm-hmm. Someone needs to just figure out how to port it to a browser window so you can just play it on a browser window.
Right? Yeah. Because, of course, Purple Moon is a defunct company.
Oh, yeah. This is abandonware, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like...
Yeah, so what was the first console y'all had?
I couldn't tell you because I didn't play with it.
Okay. But it was like when you were like late teens or mid-teens, like...
Yeah, it was probably... I don't know. My brothers could tell you for sure. It was probably when I was in middle school, like late middle school, I want to say. So like 8th grade.
So like turn of the century?
Yes. Which is wild, but yes, correct.
So like N64 probably?
Sure.
Did the controller look like a piece of shit?
I did not play with it.
Okay,
I cannot tell you.
That's me just saying that the N64 has the worst controller because I think it's garbage.
Because at that point, I had already had so many negative experiences playing console video games at other people's houses that I was like, I am not interested in engaging with this media. I am not good at that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's really fair.
Mm-hmm. Also, I did forget to mention, like Solitaire and Minesweeper classics.
Sure. Everyone played those
classics. Movies. My dad was really into playing Hearts on the computer.
Oh hell yeah!
I tried it a couple times. I couldn't figure it out. There was also a card game that wasn't Solitaire. It was,
Free Cell.
Yes.
I could never grok Free Cell. Like Solitaire, I'm in. I love Solitaire. Draw 1, great. Draw 3, less good, but I'll figure it out. Free Cell, I couldn't crack it.
Oh, I was really into Free Cell.
And then Spider Solitaire. Do you remember Spider Solitaire?
Oh, maybe that was it. Maybe it was Spider Solitaire that I really liked.
I mean, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, also that was like when I was in elementary school, so it's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
You know you could install those on your new computer if you wanted.
I don't want to.
That's fair.
I need to use my computer to be productive.
Some of us use our computers for multiple uses.
Yeah. But what was your first console that you had?
So before I was born, my parents purchased...
So in the late 1900s?
In the late 1900s.
In the mid 1900s before you were born?
The mid to late. Mid to late. Almost over 40 years ago now.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So half a century ago, your parents bought...
Anyway, before I was born, my parents bought an Atari 5200, which was... Atari made two big consoles. They made the 2600 and the 5200. Why did they pick those numbers? God only knows. I don't. But we had the 5200, which was like the bigger, like nicer one, with slightly better graphics. It was like 4-bit graphics instead of 2-bit graphics.
Woohoo.
I'm saying. And they like had a bunch of the games that they had purchased on clearance because we all still had the games in their original boxes, and many of them still had these enormous like fluorescent orange like clearance, normally $59.99, on sale for $13.
Oh jeez.
Here's the thing, like, people bitch and moan about how expensive video games are today because, like, within the last year or two, the main release price raised from $60 to $70. but they've been $60 since before we were born. If they had raised with inflation, buying Final Fantasy 16 should have cost you like $130, not $70.
Yeah.
But like everyone flipped their lids when everything went from 60 to 70. And like you'll still see
that's why you gotta gradually raise prices.
and you'll still see publishers being like, still only $60, and people are like, hell yeah. And I just want to be like, this is going to be weird esoterica that comes from working in a comic book store, but like, they're not going to stay $60. Those people are going to be the people who go to $80 first.
Yep.
Because that is exactly what happened with comics. Because a decade ago, most comics were $2.99, but Marvel started raising the price of a lot of their books to $3.99, and DC would put in big letters on the cover, holding the line at $2.99. Guess which publisher today has way more books on the shelf that are $4.99 as a rule? Not like special, more pages issues. It's just the fucking comic is $5 now. It's DC. Marvel, unless it is like a special issue with extra pages, that's just still $3.99. It's DC who has jumped from holding the line at $2.99 to every Batman and Superman book you can put money on is $5.
Sure.
I think that's interesting, and that's what's going to happen with video games. It's all those people who are like, no, we respect the gamer and are staying at $60. No, those people will be charging a $90 in 3 years. Mark my words.
Yeah.
But
so anyway,
Atari 5200.
Yep.
It had all the classics on it. Pac-Man, Dig Dug, Centipede, Asteroids, Breakout, Moon Patrol.
Yeah.
The good stuff.
When you said Pac-Man, my eyes got big because I forgot about my Pac-Man story.
Tell your Pac-Man story.
Yeah. So we were on vacation in Banff, or Banff, as we called it.
Because of the double Fs?
Because of the double Fs. And the like hotel or whatever that we were staying in had like an arcade as part of it. And they had a Pac-Man arcade booth, I guess. I don't know what they're called. Machine?
Was it just regular Pac-Man?
I think so. Maybe it was Ms. I think it was Ms. Pac-Man.
Okay.
And my dad was like, oh, they have Pac-Man. And we were all like, what's that? And he was like, you don't know? And so he like showed us this game, and I became obsessed with it. And I played it so much on that vacation that I got a blister on my finger from the joystick.
That's right. I'd forgotten that.
And anyway, so.
And here's the bummer.
Yeah.
If you could have taken those friends who were such dicks about you not being good at other console games, if you could have been like, let me introduce you to my friend Ms. Pac-Man, you'd have eaten their shorts.
Yep.
You just showed them what a real high score was. But no, Pac-Man wasn't on an NES or a Super Nintendo.
Right. I couldn't play it at home. That's why I had to play it as much as possible on that trip.
It was on the Atari 5200, which you did not have.
Nope.
But we did.
But you did. Yep.
And my favorite game on it was Moon Patrol because it had the coolest music.
Okay.
Like the Moon Patrol little MIDI music remains in my brain like this iconic little ditty.
Yeah, how does it go?
I'm not going to sing it into the microphone. That's illegal.
You should really sing it into the microphone.
I'm not gonna. That is illegal. I might splice it in. We'll see. I'm jotting down about the time. We'll see whether or not I bother to splice it in so the listeners can hear the Moon Patrol music. It ruled. But that was one of my favorite games, even though I wasn't very good at it. But one of my favorite stories about the Atari 5200 is that my mom was really good at one game and one game only. Centipede. And it was the only one we could convince her to play, and she'd get on and she'd
dominate,
kick ass for multiple levels and just show everyone who's the boss in Centipede. She would not play any other games, and she would only do it under duress, but it was always exciting when we got her to play Centipede because she was a pro. But then as we got older and me and my siblings would be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to get a Nintendo? Oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a Sega Genesis? My parents would always be like, we have video games. They're right there. It's the Atari 5200. We have all the video games you could ever need. Mm-hmm. You can go play Asteroids. And it's like, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. It's not the same.
Did they let you get a Game Boy?
No, I never had a Game Boy. I think if I had saved up for it, they would have let me purchase one. But those little shits were expensive. Game Boys were like $300 or $400.
Oh, yikes.
They were really expensive. So, no, I never had a Game Boy. What I had were a lot of those, like, little LCD, like, single-use game things, like the Tiger Electronics style games. I had a bunch of those. I thought those were so cool. Because at least it was, like, a portable game I could play.
Sure.
And those were cool, but they're not, actually.
Yeah, I had some kind of little portable game like that on a keychain, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was.
Oh, yeah?
But I know what you're talking about.
But it was one of those little LCD ones?
Yeah.
Nice. It wasn't a Tamagotchi, though. That's a different thing.
No, that's different. I hated Tamagotchis. I never had one.
Why did you hate Tamagotchis?
Because everyone had them. So, strike number one.
Okay.
But also, like, kids would get in trouble for bringing them to school because they would, like, beep and, like, be distracted. Like, you know, this is before cell phones, right? These were, like, proto-personal devices that were disruptive to the learning environment.
Because it would be like, I poop, clean up my poop, clean up my poop.
Yeah.
Or and like, you'd be like, shut that thing up.
Or you had to, like, feed it regularly or it would die. And so I remember there being stories about, like, moms who, like, were taking care of their kids' Tamagotchis when their kids were at school so they wouldn't die. And it was just like,
oh gosh,
I thought it was ridiculous.
I thought Tamagotchi were cool. We got a knockoff Tamagotchi.
Of course
we didn't get brand name Tamagotchi. Yeah. We got knockoff Tamagotchi. I don't ever remember them dying though. I felt like you could
maybe the knockoff.
I feel like you could coast. Yeah, I feel like you could coast on benign neglect, just feeding and cleaning the poop up occasionally, and they would survive just fine. But I don't know. Maybe it was just because they were a knockoff. Maybe they had a harder life. They were hardier. They weren't those like pillow princesses that are the Tamagotchis. They're just like, take care of me. Yeah, so then we just never had one growing up either. We never had consoles, so I was a computer game kid.
Sure. What computer games did you play?
So we would go to All a Dollar because the All a Dollar store, which it eventually turned into Dollar Tree, but at the time it was called All a Dollar, which was such a great name because it's fun to say. And they would sell discs of shareware games. Okay. And so we would just buy those and, like, just play whatever the hell. So, like, there are so many weird, janky shareware games that I've played the first third of. Because that was what I bought for $1 on a floppy disk at All a Dollar. So, like, Raptor Call of the Shadows, which is, like, this... It's like a shoot 'em up. It's like a flight game. So you play you're like a little like F-15, and you're just constantly shooting, and things are coming on. You have to like evade bullets while you're shooting everything else. I really liked that game. Jill of the Jungle was one of those that we had back then. Original flavor Duke Nukem and Duke Nukem 2. And famously, this was also the era when I bought myself Wolfenstein and Doom. And I would play Wolfenstein and Doom. And those games rule. Doom remains probably the greatest first-person shooter ever made. And I know that's quite a claim for a game from 1994. But there's simply no other game that is as much fun to just pick up and play 30 years after it came out. Like, a game still rules. It's still fun to play, and people are still making levels for it literally today.
That's wild.
Because it's got a really expansive, like, tool set, and is still supported, and is totally in the public domain. People are just constantly making the weirdest shit imaginable in Doom. And if you've bought Doom for, like, $7, you can play, like, every WAD. Like, it's a .wad, so it's called a WAD file. there's literally hundreds of thousands of them that you can download and play. It's wild. But I would play Doom and Wolfenstein, and my little sister Natalie hated that I would play these games.
Why?
Because she thought they were too violent.
This is the same sister that loves horror movies now?
Look. It is, in fact, the same sister who loves horror movies now. But she thought they were too violent. And so one time she was mad at me, so she narked. She ratted me out to my parents that I had Doom and Wolfenstein. And so then my parents pulled me aside, and they were like, what are these games? What do you do in these games? And I was like, because they're like, Natalie said that you kill people in these games. And I was like, no, in Doom you're killing like zombies and they like floating monster heads and like flaming skulls and like weird spider monsters. Like that's the sort of stuff you're killing in Doom. Like it's not people. And then they were like, what's this Wolfenstein game? Who do you kill in that? And I was like, Nazis. You don't kill people. You're killing Nazis. So even young Eden understood that when you subscribe to that virulent fascism, you no longer are a person. You have become something else. Oh, jeez. Needless to say, my parents did not like that logic. Did not like the logic of, no, that's still a people's. So I did get in trouble.
Good for your parents.
I don't know if my parents listen to this, but if they do, I think it's important to tell them. I lied to them and said I uninstalled those games. I hid them in another folder and didn't play them when Natalie the snitch was around.
Classic.
Cause you know who never snitched? Nessa. Hey, thumbs up Vanessa if you listen to this. You never snitched on me. You were cool. I don't know if any of them listen to this. I love you too, Natalie, but you did snitch on me that one time back in like 1997.
And so. More than just that one time.
I mean, yeah,
sure.
But that one for sure. That betrayal, the betrayal of 98. Or whatever the hell it was.
As it has come to be known.
Whatever year it was. Who cares? Yeah, anyway. It's wild.
Yeah.
So what sort of games do you like to play these days? Do you need to take that call?
I don't. I don't know why it's buzzing. I have it on Do Not Disturb.
That's weird.
Yeah.
It's the police calling. The police calling to say, your spouse killed Nazis in a video game in 1997. And then subsequent many years since, because Wolfenstein keeps being remade.
You asked me what games I'm playing now?
Yeah. So, like, you didn't grow up playing a lot of console games.
No. And I still don't.
Do you need to tell the story of my great sin?
Oh, yeah. So one of yet another reason that I don't play console games is the very first fight we ever had was about a console game.
It's true.
Yeah.
Mistakes were made.
Yeah. Why don't you tell that story?
Because it's for you to tell.
So we were at a friend's house playing Mario Party?
No.
Mario Kart?
New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
See, I don't even know. I'm just like, Mario was in it.
Mario wasn't.
And your sister Nessa was visiting. And the two of you just kept talking about how bad you were at that game, when in fact you were the best ones in the room at that game.
No, Jacob was far better than we were.
All right. Well, it was his game, so point proven, right? When people own the game, they're always the best at it.
It's true.
And the way that the game works is that you have like your little party of people, but whoever's in front like pushes the screen, and so if you don't keep up with the rest of the group, then your person disappears off the screen, and then you inevitably die because you can't see what's happening around you because you're not on the screen anymore. So I kept dying like that, which is incredibly frustrating. And you did not say, hey, let's wait for Cassie. And it was infuriating. And we fought about it later. I felt neglected. I don't know if that's the right word. I felt like I didn't matter. And it was embarrassing in front of all of our friends. And I was mad at you about it.
That's fair.
Yep.
It was not very nice of me.
It was not.
I'd like to think that in the subsequent many, many years since this happened before we were even married. I'd like to think I'm a little better about those sorts of things nowadays.
I wouldn't know. I've never played that game with you again.
To be fair, I don't know that I've played that game since then. So we got it when we got a Wii. We got that game. I don't think I ever even put it in the console because it like came with it. But
Sure.
Negative emotions attached to the new Super Mario Brothers Wii.
And now all of Mario.
Also, it's not a very good game. It's a bad Mario game.
It's not a good game mechanic.
No, that one specifically, like, because you could, like, do the button to put yourself in a bubble and then you would like float and meet up with the rest of the team, but
if
like
you know that secret.
it's not clear that that's what you can do, and like we weren't very good about explaining it, but also we should have just waited for you instead of like running onward.
Yes.
It was a jerk move. Lessons were learned.
Yep.
So that soured you forever on Mario, and now whenever you see that guy you're like, no. Mario, you're dead to me. Mario in a movie? Never. I'll never watch that movie, even if it was Charles Martinet instead of Chris Pratt doing the voice. I'll never watch it. So, like, how has your relationship with games changed, though, now? Because I feel like you play more games now than when we first got married. You still don't play games as much as I do. You're more of a watch a show person than a play a game person.
Well, was it you who introduced me to Plants vs. Zombies on the iPad?
Yeah. Because we were given, right after we got married, or right before we got married.
We got a hand-me-down iPad.
We got a first-gen iPad from your dad because he got a second or third gen. And, like, I had played Plants vs. Zombies on the PC and thought it was really just a delightful, charming game. And I knew it was on the iPad, so I bought it for our iPad. And then you started playing it.
Yeah, and I loved it. And I still love it. And I love that the plant names are punny. And I don't know.
What do you think you like? Because that's like a tower defense game to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the kind where you put them up and then like people walk a circuit that they're getting hit by all sides. It's more of a like wave-based like tower defense. But what appeals to you about that game?
I think I like the planning and I like the strategy, but I also like that there isn't, like, once the combat piece starts, there isn't a lot of like stuff like swiping and things that you need to do. You're just like, the mechanic is the same. You're just planting things. And so it's like not complicated. It's not like what is like the cheat code where it's like A B B, yeah, you know, like there's none of that. Oh, I thought of another computer game.
What's that?
I played as a kid. My friend 2 doors over had a game called Chips Challenge. And it was a game that we would play together, and you were this little character Chip, and you had to collect different colored keys to like defeat each level, and each level had like different challenges. And the cheat code thing reminded me because there's one level that is like an ice skating level, and it had different like backstop things, where like, because you would just go straight until you like ran into something. Yeah. And so the ice skating level, I remember her older brother like figured out how to beat it, because you had to do like a very specific directional order in order to get the key and then get to unlock the key to go to the next level. And yeah. So anyway, so
it's like a logic puzzle sort of platformer.
Yeah, and there it was like sort of like mazes, and there were also like, I don't know. This was like in 4th grade.
Sure.
But I remember specifically the ice skating level because we could not figure it out, and then her brother Brian was like, "Here's the secret." And I don't know how he figured it out, but
okay.
Anyway, but I like Plants vs. Zombies because there's not like secret cheat codes, or like Plants vs. Zombies 2, which is what I am playing now, has a lot more of that kind of like power-ups and stuff.
Sure.
But original Plants vs. Zombies, like, you could have a pretty solid strategy that, like, would work.
Yeah.
And,
well, and I felt like the success of that game came in your long-term planning and preparation more than, like, split-second decisions.
Yes.
Because, like, you could not make enough split-second decisions to recover from like fatal planning errors.
Yeah, like if you didn't get enough sun at the beginning, like,
or if you wasted it on things that like didn't end up being useful, like you put things in a lane that wasn't a good lane to put it in,
right? Or like they would have different levels where. Like I remember one of the levels was you were on the roof of the house, and so the roof had a slight pitch to it, and so if you just used the pea shooters that just like shoot straight, they wouldn't hit the zombies
over the top of the roof.
Yeah, and so
you had to use the corn catapults or whatever.
Yeah, the cabbage pult.
Well, I think it was corn in that first game.
There's two.
I don't remember. Was there cabbage in that first game too?
Because the cabbage one just did regular damage, but then the corn one, every like fourth catapult was butter that would freeze them in place.
That's right.
Yeah. And I can't remember what the corn one is called. Maybe it's a cornapult.
Corntapult or something.
Yeah. But then there was the walnuts that like would stop them, and
the tall nuts.
And the tall nuts that would get the floating zombies. And the spike weed that would cause damage as they walked over them. And anyway, so I like all the different like tools, but I also like that like you can find your pretty solid ones, and like for the most part, like just do that. And yeah, so I think that's what I like about it.
And so you had not played it for years and years,
right.
But when we were recently again visiting your family, your nephew is like Plants vs. Zombies obsessed.
Yes, like
to the point where like when he wasn't allowed to be playing video games,
when his screen time was used up for the day, he would
make paper copies and then make you play it, and he would make all of the sound effects and like move them back and forth and be like,
yep. Oh, and here's the big boss, and it's pretty great. But yeah, and so you talked me up about how good I was at Plants vs. Zombies. And so I asked him if I could play a level on his iPad, but because it was his iPad, he like couldn't just watch me play it. He like started to also play it, and so then it was just like, okay, you are playing this level. Yeah. So I downloaded it on my phone so that he could watch me play it, and that was actually pretty fun.
And you're still playing it, right?
I am still playing it. I'm on the... So the Plants vs. Zombie 2, the premise is that it's time traveling. And so I'm on the like 80s level.
You've been to like pirate times and ancient Egypt and all sorts of other places.
Ancient Egypt is the first one, and shoot, I can't remember them all. There's like there's like prehistoric times. There's also I can't even remember now.
You would think in a world that had this many zombies for this long, eventually the humans would stop. Eventually the zombies would win, right?
Sometimes they do eat your brains, yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I know. I think the idea with the time traveling is that, well, I guess the zombies are from that time and you are just the one jumping around. So, yeah. The storyline leaves something to be desired.
I mean, it always kind of did, because it was always just your weird neighbor Dave giving you weird crap to put in your yard.
Well, in the first game in Plants vs. Zombies, he's called Crazy Dave, and in Plants vs. Zombies 2, he's called User Dave, which is weird.
User Dave?
Yeah. But then sometimes they still call him Crazy Dave, and I'm like, was this a search and replace failure?
That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's a game that I play on my phone now. And then also Stardew Valley on our Switch.
Sure.
Which I just call our Stardew Valley machine.
It's about the only thing we use it for, because I really don't like the controllers on it, so I avoid using the Switch.
Yeah.
And so it's really just the Stardew machine.
And then also, what's that house one that we
House Flipper.
House Flipper. Yeah, I was playing that for a while on it. But then I got discouraged because you got House Flipper for the computer, and it has way more expansions than the one for the Switch, and so then I got jealous of all the cool stuff you could do, and I stopped playing it.
That's fair. I have that Steam Deck now. Maybe I should install it on there, and you can fiddle around with Luxury Flipper and HGTV Flipper and Pet Flipper.
I was just on the one where you can get pets.
They're very cute.
Yeah.
You want the one where you can live in that converted
A train car.
Train car.
Yes, like the boxcar children.
With your 2 dogs.
That's all I've ever wanted.
Like I was living that life for a while.
Yep, or on the moon.
And then I sold the train car to move to the moon, and the moon sucked. And I was like, I hate this. I want the train car back, but I sold it.
It was too late.
It was too late. Mm-hmm. You have to beat the whole game to unlock the ability to buy any of the other ones. And it's like, I guess I'm done. And I haven't touched the game since. Once I found out that's what it would cost to get the train back, I was like, I guess I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then let's see, what else? On my phone I have that match game, the Unicorn Match.
Unicorn 2048.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I've gotten up to 1 octopus, which I think is right before the unicorn.
We don't know what numbers they are because she uses these. This Unicorn 2048 uses an inscrutable animal become other animal system.
Because it's
so there's no way of knowing how close you're getting to actually 2048.
It's like sheep and then pigs and then
chickens
and then a fox. Oh no, it's chickens and then pigs and then fox and then sheep and then cow and then camel and then panda.
There's no way of knowing.
And then monkey and then crab and then octopus, I think.
I have no idea. What little time I've spent playing 2048, I played with numbers so that I could know what needed to go to what.
Yeah, I used to screenshot every time I got to the crab because I was so proud. No, it was the octopus.
It was the octopus.
And that has been years now.
Since you've seen an octopus?
No. That I since
you've been playing it for years.
Since I first got to the octopus, and I have not progressed past the octopus.
Sure. It's your high water mark.
Yeah, it is. It is rough, but it's like the game that I play when I just need to be doing something so that I can pay attention to something else.
For sure.
And then also word games, because Wordle became a big thing, and then stopped playing Wordle and started playing Quirtle, which is Wordle times 4, and also Waffle, which is like a crossword Wordle type game. And also Semantle, which you hate but are great at.
It's the worst game ever made.
And yet,
I don't care how good I
win
am at it. It doesn't matter. It's still the worst game ever made because it's inscrutable. And the choices of how words are connected are not made by human. They're made by extraterrestrial life.
They're made by Dancer.
I guess. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah. So that's all that I do. It's just those games.
Nice. Well, listeners to this podcast know that I play a lot of RPGs.
Yep.
Because I like to play RPGs. I used to think I was a person who was into shooters, but I'm not very good at those these days.
Yeah.
Because, especially on a console, it's hard to do especially first-person shooters, it's hard to play those with a controller, I feel like.
I think controllers are hard to use in general, so...
I think for me it depends on the game. There's some things that I feel like are way easier to use on the controller. Final Fantasy XIV is so much fun, more easy to play and more fun to play on a controller than it is with a keyboard and mouse. But some other stuff, it's just I need a... This is precision aiming. I need a mouse for this. But yeah, I like playing video games. I like role-playing games a lot. That's a lot of what I play. Just I was looking at the list.
You like them for the stories.
I do. And if the story's not very good, here's the thing. The bar is lower for a video game than other media, unfortunately. What I think is a great story in video games would make a perfectly mid movie.
Yes.
Which is a shame. There are just so few games where you can really be no, the writing in this is really stand out in irrespective of the media. Because that's just not the case. Most video games are not very well written. Which is a shame, but I do still like a lot of them for their stories, and that's basically what I like to do, is play games that have good for games stories.
Yep, you like the stories and you like the outfits.
there are three things that I love in an RPG: story, romance, and fashion. And those are my big three. And if a game can hit all three of those, is she gonna sneeze? She's thinking about it.
Oh, it feels like it.
But yeah, if a game can hit all three of those, it's like one of the best games ever made.
And so, is there a game that hits all three?
All three of those is hard to come by because usually you get two and not the other. The games with good... There we go.
Thank you.
Got it. I feel like the games with good romances rarely have good fashions.
Interesting.
And the games with good fashions rarely have romance.
Do you know what games have a lot of romance and it is too much romance? Is those novel...
The visual novels?
Visual novels.
That's literally all visual novels are.
Here is the thing about visual novels.
Hit me.
I have played a couple of them on my phone.
Sure.
I can't remember choices. I think. Yeah, and it had like different types of storylines where it could be like fantasy or like realistic fiction.
Or here's the one where you're trying to get the prince to fall in love with you. And here's the like sort of weird horror-y one. And here's the one where you're like the rising social media star.
Yeah, but here is my problem with all of those.
Hit me.
Well, there's a couple things. But the biggest thing is that every person wants to date you. So there is like no
Everyone
challenge.
is player sexual.
Yes.
Yes.
And so there's nobody that you could be like, hey, I'm into you. And they'd be like, oh, let's just be friends. Because all of them are like, I'm into you too. And it's like, okay.
That is a thing that's actually like a thing that has been kind of hotly debated in the last couple of years in video games. Because there has been a move, especially as like... social mores about gender and sexuality have gotten a little looser, and like it is more normal in a video game for you to, you know, have a queer relationship rather than a hetero relationship.
Sure. Yep.
And so
great.
Obviously I think that's great as a queer person. I think this is great. But a lot of games that, like, in the past, it would have been like, oh, well, if you play as a male character, then you can romance this person, and this person. If you play as a female character, you can romance that person, and that person. These being two separate camps.
Right.
But as those lines have kind of blurred, most games, I feel like, have taken the tack of saying everyone is bi.
Yeah.
Any person who is a potential love interest, regardless of your gender as the player character, will and can be interested in you.
Yeah. Well, and my thing is, like, I think that's great, but it feels like there should be some kind, and maybe this is asking too much, but it feels like you should only be able to romance a certain number of people at a time. Because in the visual novels, like, you can just, like, flirt with everyone. And you can just, like, hook up with everyone.
Well, that's not true in other games.
Yeah.
Like, again, just to talk about a game that I was just playing earlier, Starfield, has 4 main companions. You can get hire other people for your crew and they can be companions. But there's 4 main story companions. And all of them are potential love interests. And so during my playthrough, I romanced Andreja because she was the one I liked most. She seemed the coolest. She has this cool asymmetrical outfit, and you know, asymmetry and an accent, baby, I'm here for you. So Andreja was the one I went with. Also, Sarah, who was the other one who I was maybe going to date, too much of a goody two-shoes. She was so hoity-toity about, like, she was like, you can make whatever choices you want, and then you do you steal one med pack from a bad guy, and she's like, I can't believe you'd steal something, and you're like, dog, it's from a bad guy!
She's too lawful good for you?
She's too lawful good for me. Andreja, who is, like, a secret agent sent by the weird, like, space religion people hiding in the depths of deep space, she was cool. But one of the things that was interesting is that, like, as you were like getting closer to her and you were like, hey, I like you, I want to make a commitment to you, she'd be like, yeah, we gotta have a discussion about this. I do not share. So if you're cool with monogamy, we can keep talking about this. If you want to date other people, you can date other people that do not include me. And I thought that was really interesting that like she explicitly says when you go down a romance tree with her, you like build that relationship with her, she's like, dog, I am a monogamy person. So like you want to go date other people too? Great. I'm not going to be one of your fucking paramours then. Like I don't do that.
Sure.
And like obviously I just went, I was like, cool, I respect that. Let's get married. We did whatever it took to get married in that game, and then every time you'd like go click on her, it started to get a little annoying because she'd be like, every day I see you, my day is better, or something like shit like that. And it's cute at first, then by the end you're like, yeah, I get it, okay.
Yeah, I'm amazing.
It's fine. It's fine. You don't have to tell me how great I am literally every time I click on you, babe. But from what I read like online, like if you do like start that relationship and then you do start going and dating someone else, you have a very uncomfortable confrontation with her where she comes and she's like, you made a promise to me and you broke it. We're done.
Good for her.
And then she's like mad at you for a few days afterwards, but then she becomes like neutral to you because she's still like part of the
which
like
seems wild, but okay.
You can only do so much. There's only so many things you can program in a game with 1,000 planets in it, and I guess that was not one of their major focuses, is keep Andreja pissed off at the player character if they cheat on her. But I did think it was interesting that is explicitly in the game, just like you were talking about. Like, there are other games where, sure, you can date everyone.
Yeah, well,
but this is one where it's like, but that leads me to wonder, like, are other characters cool with it? Like, can you date Sarah and Barrett at the same time? And both of them are like, yeah, it's fine. We're cool.
I'm trying to remember, because one of the other things that I didn't like about Choices was that it had, like, timing as part of it. So
well, that game was like...
It was a pay-to-play at a certain point.
It became almost predatory because it was like, oh, do you want to get the good scene? You have to have a certain number of gems.
Yeah, and also, like, do you want the best outfit for this event that you're going to?
Yeah, you want things to go better
by
putting on the Belle dress instead of this extremely plain Jane, like taffeta thing.
Yeah. And
because that's going to be 20 gems.
And then also to go to the next chapters, you needed keys, and you only got keys every like certain number of like,
every 2 hours or some shit like that.
Real time hours, and I think it was more than 2 hours, but maybe not. Maybe I just don't have any patience. And so then those are things that you could buy with like real money to keep playing the games, and I don't like games that do that. So,
but it's just like that model feels predatory to me.
Yeah,
because it's so easily exploited, or not exploited. It so easily exploits a person who really wants to have the best story and who like really falls for these characters and is I really want this. I want to have my main character have the best experience they can in this game. It's going to cost me like $20 in gems in order to pick the best gem thing in every single thing. But there's not an option to be like, I will pay you $20 to unlock every choice. And just let me play it as many times as I want and see every choice that I want because I gave you $20 fucking dollars.
Right, yeah. And so it feels like it is taking advantage of the like most loyal players.
Yeah.
And that to me is what sucks about it, is it's like, well, I really like this game that you made, and now you're making me pay you more money than people who are like casual players of this game that get to play for free.
Yeah, well, and it becomes like that model of game funding fundamentally relies on whales. People who pay hundreds or thousands of dollars for the game, which is
not good,
unethical.
Yeah,
I don't think it's ethical.
Or like people whose kids are playing these games and the parents don't realize that their kids are spending real money in these games, and then they end up spending. Like I had a friend who or I shouldn't say that. I had an acquaintance whose kid spent like $1,000 on like in the process of playing an iPad game, and she had no idea until the credit card bill came, and there was nothing that she could do about it because it was real money that had been authorized,
and that he had used in the game,
right? Exactly.
To
so there was like nothing to refund.
Fortnite skins or whatever,
right? And like that is. What? Yeah. And I do know that, like, and this was many years ago, and so, like, there are more, like, protections for things like that, so that doesn't happen with, like, your kid is playing your game or whatever, but...
The fact remains.
But still.
Yeah, it's really messed up.
Yes.
Well, we should probably wrap up this chat.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about video games you want to tell people before you leave as our guest host for the for the ep?
If you are bad at video games, don't feel bad. Video games are bad.
It's true.
They're not intuitive, and
that's true.
The controllers are not obvious what buttons do what, and
unless you have it takes institutional knowledge in order for it to be intuitive.
Yep.
Because like, if you've played a lot of games, then it does become intuitive. And like, you load up a game and you are on an Xbox controller and you're like, why is the jump button? And guess what? Y is the jump button.
Which makes zero sense. Why is Y jump? What does Y... How do Y and jump connect?
It's the top of the 4. The bottom one is always like select. The right one is always like dodge or menu or things like that. The top one is always jump.
It makes no sense.
I'm just telling you. It's weird. But here it is. But yeah, so we can wrap that episode here. My last thing that I will say about video games. If anyone ever wants to play Final Fantasy XIV, hit me up, baby! I will take you through. My beautiful bunny girl will take you through all the dungeons if you want to play Final Fantasy XIV. I love it. It's a lot of game, and it takes about 50 hours before it gets really good, which is the worst possible way to sell a video game to someone.
Yep.
To be like, hey, about 50 hours in, this game gets really good, and then is good for like 250 hours after that. But like, A, I'm telling you the game takes 300 hours to play. B, the first 50 hours is not very good.
And also, if you try Final Fantasy XIV and you don't like it, that's also okay.
That's totally okay. Cassie gave it a try for one night, didn't care for it, stopped playing.
Yeah, I did it
Peter gave it a try for one night, stopped playing, that's fine.
I tried it on a computer because I was like, video game controllers make no sense to me. Maybe I could play it on a computer. And I kind of could, but I didn't.
You just didn't have fun. You weren't having fun.
Yeah, it did not pull me in.
Which is fair. Mm-hmm. But if anyone wants to try, I'm here for you.
Or if you're already playing.
Or if you're already playing.
Level up.
And you want just someone to like goof around with, let me know. Mm-hmm. So we'll wrap it there. Thank you all for listening. As always, if you have anything you'd like to share with us, you can always email us at feedback@themiddleofculture.com. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another goofy episode, I think, probably about video game RPG ranking and pitting one RPG against another RPG in the most capricious and arbitrary ways possible.
You won't want to miss it.
No, it'll be fun. It'll be fun and goofy. All right, see y'all in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Cassie. It was a delight.